Hello, hello. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to another episode. G Boot 2786. Gavin Richard presents What's Going On? What are y'all up to? Anybody that may be in the chat room, give a shout out. Want to talk about something. A couple of things. You guys probably haven't seen me in a while, wondering where I've been. Just been busy with work. I've been working on a new job, so I work long hours, just like I'm sure most of you all do. So I'm not dead. I'm still very much around, and I'm just busy. So hope all is well. Let me try and see if I can get some more people up here in the chat room for a second. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. Who's in the chat room? Anybody who's if you're here live, obviously I assume you're here, you're in the chat room. So why don't you say something right quick for a shout out? Uh what I was gonna say, guys, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna definitely try and fill this room up. Give me a second. I'm just trying to get some more people in. Hold on. 1 second. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. Another weekend. It looks like it's quick and it's fast. I wanted to do a video right quick. I'm waiting for more people to come up, but they'll come and they'll watch this video later. But a lot has been going on. I just never had a chance to really talk about it. Just busy. But I did see, and I'm gonna get to the topic in a second. But I want to go over something I saw a couple of weeks ago. I saw the Halloween movie. Anybody check that out? If you did, say in the chat room if you did. Checked out the Halloween movie with Jamie Lee Curtis, and so far it's made over $200 million. Now, I don't want to give the movie away, but if you don't like spoilers, if you haven't seen the movie and you plan to see it, I'll give you some time to get out of the chat room right now. I'll give you about 10 seconds. So, all right. I saw the movie this past week. So, with the movie, obviously it's set up where the other sequels in the original Halloween trilogy never happened. So it's basically a sequel set 40 years after the original Halloween movie that uh, John Carpenter. What's up, bro? B1 for life. How you doing? It's my man. Yeah. Well, the movie was basically it's a sequel to the original Halloween. Yeah, from set 40 years ago. So in the other sequels, Michael Myers, a serial killer in Halloween. It's interesting is that he only works Halloween. What does he do for the other holidays? I hate to see what he does on Christmas. Uh, but for some reason, yeah, they ignored the sequels, and the movie has made over $200 million. It's a big hit. But I tie this into what we've been seeing lately. When we look at the Me Too movement, when we look at these uh, Times Up and the feminist movements that we've seen across the country, the movie basically was a uh, the movie was set up basically from the standpoint of a pro-feminist agenda, and it kind of got to me like it was an anti-male movie. Now, as a movie, as a horror movie, it's well done. The cinematography, the lighting, the direction, the acting were all great. Was all great. The script was great in terms of how it was set up. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis did a fantastic job. I thought the other actresses did a great job, but I had issues with the writing and the way, obviously, when I point out the agenda. For instance, in one scene in Halloween, okay, when Michael Myers is out and he's murdered several people already, there's a scene in the movie where I'm sorry, where Laurie Strode's daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter's daughter, her granddaughter, is missing. They can't find her. Her cell phone is not on her, and she can't get in touch with anybody. So long story short, when she can't get in touch with anyone, you know, it's assumed they're trying to get him because they think Michael was going to stalk her, going to kill her. Yet in the movie, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, who has post traumatic stress disorder, she's basically a gun enthusiast. She's got her own range. She has a safe house, and she gives guns to her daughter and her son-in-law. And all the while that the girl is missing, the father of the daughter is playing around with a fucking yo-yo. I kid you not. In one scene, he's actually playing with a yo-yo with a mass killer out that's possibly stalking his daughter, and he's not doing anything to go after her. On top of that, the women take the lead in the movie. The three survivors at the end, again, this is spoilers, so I'm just letting you know. In the movie, Jamie Lee Curtis, her daughter, and her granddaughter are the ones that survive Halloween, and they ended up trapping supposedly Michael Myers in a fire. They set it all up. Now, how I tie this in with the whole why I'm mentioning this is that when you look at TV now, when we look at what's happened, I think there was a show on Netflix called Godless where it's a show about a town that has no men in it. It's like, oh my god, look, you couldn't have a society without men, and you couldn't have a society without women. There's something called equality. Equality doesn't mean getting your way all the time. Equality means it's an even playing field. But there are some things that, in reality, there's some things that men can do, and there's some things that men can't do, and there's some things women can do, and there's some things women can't do. That's just the bottom line. Women are not men, and men are not women. Period. Now, how I tie it into again with the movie, it just seemed odd, and I looked at it, and also the police officers in the movie are dumb, all men. They're stupid. One cop, uh, you know, when they see a DOA, a dead body, they don't even go. For some reason, they don't even call for backup when they see when they see the body on the ground, and he ends up killing two of them. So, you know, uh, it was odd, and it's just part of that environment that we have and we live in now, where we're seeing more and more of these propaganda, this agenda, more of this propaganda to me, where men are just going to be the idiots of society, or there's no need for them, and women are going to be the ones that runs everything, are in control. There was no male hero in this movie. Now, does that mean that a woman can't be a protagonist in a movie? Absolutely not. But I just look at it, and I look at the standpoint of the overall. I'm just to the point where, as a kid, these things used to look great to me. When you would see, like for instance, the Indiana Jones movie where Indiana Jones jumps out of the plane with the raft, you thought that was cool, but now as you got older, you realize, the fuck is this real? Like, could that really happen? Like Richard Pryor skiing down the building in Superman 3, like, really? It's kind of one of those things. But neither here nor there. It was just interesting to see something like that. And I felt, it was there's an agenda that's there in Hollywood, and it goes to sort of what Judge Joe Brown and I have talked about. If you listen to We All Be New, shout out to Brother Ron Hurd, where they talk about, where Judge Joe Brown talks about how we have to man up and this man training that we have to do in our society now, something that we rarely do see. So yeah, it's just it was something that caught my attention. But anyway, to get to the topic at hand, it's about voting. I have to say this because I've seen it, especially coming up with the sister that's running for governor in Georgia, Stacey Abrams. brother running for governor in Florida, Andrew Gillum. Everybody I've seen, and they had brought uh, big bad Oprah Winfrey saddlebags that came in there. Who we never even hear from Oprah Winfrey. We haven't even heard from Oprah in truthfulness. She never really has spoken out against, racism and black issues, like talking about it. When she had her television show, she didn't even talk about it. She rarely had rappers on her show. Everything that she was geared and pushed for was to mostly middle class white women or upper class white women who sit at home all day and watch her TV show and watch TV and shop and so forth. And they would put Oprah on, and her platform was geared to them. Now, I respect her as a businesswoman. She's done a lot. And by the way, what's interesting too is that Oprah made the news this week. Her colleague, Dr. Phil, also made the news when he had that BS propaganda about the black white supremacist, the female Clayton Bixby, which a lot of people really shouldn't be upset about because it was clear that the whole thing was rigged. There's actually now details that was provided from the advice show by Phil. Shout out to him. With regards to this woman, this young girl, basically is being pimped out by her own mother and her sister. There's a Essence article where she talked about it and how they made that whole thing up. She actually thought that this was going to be about her sister getting help because she's been in and out of juvie hall. She's been arrested before. And apparently, Dr. Phil used this as propaganda uh, to boost ratings, like the Catch Me Outside girl. Let's not forget Dr. Phil also had that episode where he had these Cosby accusers on, and he knowingly had these women on who told lies like Chloe Goins. When Chloe Goins said Bill Cosby sexually assaulted her at the Playboy Mansion, and she gave a specific date, well, Bill Cosby's attorneys and his people were able to show that he wasn't even in town at the time Chloe Goins said this happened at the Playboy Mansion. But did Dr. Phil issue an apology to Bill Cosby? Did he actually print a retraction? I'm sorry, not print a retraction, excuse me, but did he actually state that, put a disclaimer on in his next show that we regretfully apologize that, and as we've discovered that this person misled us or lied to us about this? No, he didn't. He did not. So that's what you got going on. It's all Hollywood. It's scripted. Most of the reality shows that you even see on TV are not real. That's all scripted when you look at it and the bright uh, side of things. So just keep that in mind. But as it turns to voting, I've gotten off topic. I'm sorry. But when it comes to voting, black people, yeah, we're both talking about voting and making history, because and we should do it because Martin Luther King would have done this, and then you got this old timer like John Lewis who hadn't done shit in Congress. I don't know anything, you know. Let's be real with this, and I respect, uh, people like John Lewis and Andrew Young and their sacrifices that they've made. But don't you realize that you can no longer, and I want the elders to hear this if they are listening. They probably are asleep now, but when they see this video, y'all play this for them. You cannot shame the young generation anymore into voting for people who will not push our agendas. Period. Period. It doesn't matter what you did in 1964 with Martin Luther King. It doesn't matter what you did in 1970s with the Black Panthers, or if anything, when you tried to get more black people to vote for the Democratic Party. We should not be a part of any party that does not push our agenda. I look at what those two candidates, these two black candidates, Miss Abrams, I'm sorry, and Mr. Gilliam, and the main agenda that they're pushing, it isn't about reparations. It isn't about affirmative action dealing with African Americans. You know what it's about? It's about illegal immigrants. Let's be real about something here. If you come to this country and you come in illegally, meaning you don't follow protocol and laws, you've broken the law, period. How can you even, like, and Dr. Boyce Watkins, he talks about this. Like, how can you even defend something like this? Why is this? Why should this be number one? We're talking about. I looked at Miss Abrams' platform. She talks about pushing DACA for dreamers, and also, putting up sanctuary cities. Taking care of illegal immigrants who want quality education. We got African Americans right now who don't have quality education, who can't even get jobs, who are dealing with struggling with student loan debt like I am. I'm a business owner. I own my own law firm, but right now I got to deal with student loan debts. I got to deal with that. You got to deal with that. You got black people in this country that wish they could go to college for free, that wish they didn't have student loans, and not one of these fucking people, one of these politicians are talking about that. Why are they worried about somebody who comes into this country illegally? They broke the law. They're criminals. You committed a crime. But now, let me be clear. I'm not doing this as a rant against anybody from any country. I support people that want to come to this country, that want to do the right thing. They want to come in and they want to be Americans. Great. They want to learn how to. They want to learn the American culture. Absolutely, come over. They're law-abiding citizens. Yes, come over. And we can't blanket. And I agree. You can't blanket an entire group of people per se and say that they're criminals. I wouldn't go that far to say that about somebody. No, all Mexicans are not criminals. I would never say anything like that or support a logic like that. But if you come to this country illegally, you don't learn how to read or write English, you don't pay taxes, and you want as politicians to support some shit like this, I'm sorry, but I'm not supporting you. And if you're in Congress right now supporting it, your ass got to go. You got to go. Do it legally. Yeah, could there be, and let's be real, could there be reform on that where the process is a little bit smoother? Do we necessarily want children separated from their parents and mothers? Absolutely not. But you know something? They got black families right now that are separated. Black men are separated from their black babies. And sometimes it's done as a result of the system. We don't hear talks about reforming that system. We don't talk about that. Everything right now, they push every other minority's agenda is getting pushed. And to a large degree, it is our fault because as black people because we allow ourselves to be prostituted many times by the Democratic Party. And uh, this is not a video to say I support Republicans by no means. Absolutely not. So, but what I am saying is that we should support ourselves. We should be independent thinkers. And I tie this in again to the topic with the elderly. Our ancestors did not die for us to have the right to vote. They died for us for the right to be free and have freedom. The right to vote is just a fraction or part of the ideology of us having freedom. It wasn't just about the right to vote, it was also the right to own land. It was also the right to have a job, to have money, the pursuit of happiness, the ability to go and have a free education without threat of intimidation. Because if you're an African American black person, uh, you say, why can't we do both and support both causes? Well, Jennifer, with all due respect, those groups are not supporting my people. This agenda does not benefit Black Americans. These groups do not, when they come over here, when we deal with police brutality, when we deal with you, okay, but that's you. That's not everybody else. You're talking about you as an individual. I'm talking about a population. I'm talking about an agenda that's being pushed. Those groups do not deal with Black Lives Matter. They do not deal with police brutality. And let's not even talk about immigration groups. Uh, let's not just say immigration groups. Let's say uh, LGBTQ. You rarely hear from any of their leaders when it comes to police brutality, from the shootings of unarmed black men. Yeah, there may be a few individuals who will speak out and say something. Yeah, there are a few that'll speak on those issues, but you know what they'll do? They'll co-opt that movement. They'll co-opt the stuff we do because I've seen it. I actually never forget. I was actually at a meeting where we were talking about uh, the protesting during the Alton Sterling shooting, and all of a sudden they were bringing up transgender stuff. Like, what the fuck that have to do with it? Oh, if this person gets arrested, what happens if they're trans? Or what if they're queer? Or they were saying these were their words, and I'm just listening to it. I'm listening to it, and I'm wondering, how did we get off topic? That's why I couldn't support it. I just couldn't. I'm not supporting that. It doesn't benefit me. And you know what? People may if people think that's being selfish, tough. Because you know why? Many of these groups will not push my agenda. They'll be quiet and not say anything. I keep seeing African American issues being co-opted all the time. I'm not saying that you can't help people, and I'm not saying people can't come over here. If they want to learn, they want to be Americans, great, fine. But do it legally. It's not an agenda for me. And I'm looking at the African Americans the Black Americans that are running for political office. The this Abrams, the Gillum. I haven't heard a Black agenda. When we had, let's go take it back to 2008. We had the first Black president, Barack Obama. You asked him about doing things for African Americans. What was the talk? He said, "Well, I'm not the president of Black America. I'm the president of all America." But yet, I saw him push for abortion rights for white women. I saw him push for LGBTQ. I saw him push for reparations for Native Americans. Did you know that? Anybody know that? He pushed. Did you all know that there was a push for reparations for Jews in Nazi Germany based off the Holocaust because certain American insurance companies benefited from the Holocaust in Germany? That he pushed for reparations for those groups. Yet when it came to Black Americans and asking for reparations for unpaid labor, for slavery, he was against it. When you asked him about affirmative action, you can go, you don't even have to take my word for it. It's on YouTube. When he was asked these questions, he said emphatically he was against it. But we pledge our undying loyalty to him. And that's what cost us. Mark Morial, who was the president of the National Urban League. Morial was also mayor here in New Orleans. His father, Dutch Morial, was the first Black mayor in the city of New Orleans. He actually, Mark Morial actually said before Obama left that we missed a golden opportunity because why we were so interested in getting they were so interested in getting invited inside the White House that they put an agenda that they wanted aside. You know, they were so interested. It's just like the Tom Joyner's, the black medias that had failed. You remember when Tavis Smiley and Cornel West were criticizing Barack Obama and 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 Steve Harvey called those brothers Uncle Toms on his radio show? Remember when Tom Joyner uh, disavowed Tavis Smiley? You remember when he called Cornel West Tavis? It said like Cornel West was Tavis Smiley's boy toy, basically trying to say that he was gay. Saying some shit like that, which is why Tom Joyner's ass is getting off the radio right now because all of that cooning that these guys were doing for Obama, never asking for anything, never demanding policy or changes, asking tough questions, all of the blind defense that they did, that these men did, now they're losing their shows. Now they're getting in trouble because there's no need for them. You look at NBC now, when they had Tamron Hall, when they had Al Sharpton, they had these TV shows during Obama's presidency. All of these groups were there. And now all of a sudden, when Obama left office, you notice that those TV shows quietly went off the air. Al Sharpton, if he is on MSNBC, and I think he is, he's not on prime time anymore, like talking about it. He doesn't have great ratings. Same thing with Tamron Hall. She was on the Today Show during the Obama presidency. And now Joy Reid, who's on there, and she was even shitting on Bill Cosby. But remember, she's gotten in trouble lately. She had her show pulled off. See, there's no backbone anymore. There is no black media. It's dead. And it ties in again to what we're discussing with shaming our children into voting. You can no longer shame the youth into voting for people that will not represent you. You ought to listen to what Minister Farrakhan said when he talked years ago. I'll never forget after the Ferguson incident when those kids told Jesse Jackson, if you're on about anything, get the hell out, Jesse. The youth are tired. The youth in this country are tired of seeing lack of progress in the bullshit that you've been feeding for them for years. We're tired of you telling us go vote because your grandmother would have wanted. My grandfather, if he was still alive, he wouldn't care for none of these motherfuckers that were voting. Honestly, he probably would just cast the empty ballot. Now, if we're talking about local elections and voting locally, I'm behind that 100%. Yeah, you're more impacted by things locally than you are things nationally. We should support, like, for instance, there's a bill here in Louisiana, a unanimous jury for unanimous voting in jurors. We don't have that in Louisiana. Louisiana and Oregon are the only two states that do not deal with unanimous jury decisions. There should be something like that. Yes, absolutely vote for that. Yes, you should vote on those constitutional amendments. Those are important. But there's also another part to that end that is you got to be willing to also serve on jury duty. You also got to have judges that are going to be on your side. You're going to have prosecutors that are willing to take these cases where you see an unarmed police officer, I'm sorry, an unarmed African American being shot by a cop and they're not too scared to actually do something about it. See, it's more than just getting out there and telling them you got to go vote because Martin Luther King would want it. I'm tired of hearing that shit. I saw John Lewis, Tariq Nasheed posted a 50-second clip, and John Lewis talked about how he got his ass kicked on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Shit, you should have brought a gun. I mean, look, no, I'm just tired of hearing all of that. Is there something you did in 1970 and 1980 since you've been a a representative of the state of Georgia? What laws have you pushed for African Americans since you've been elected? I'm grateful for your sacrifice in what you did. I'm I'm grateful for Schwirmer and Cheney and Goodman that tried to get African Americans to vote. Medgar Evers, who tried to get blacks to vote in Mississippi and was gunned down outside of his home. He doesn't get talked about a lot lately. You know, those things are important, but we got to realize too, there's a flip side to the right of voting, to voting. It's also about controlling your politicians. You look at the movie like The Godfather, when they talked about what the War of the Five Families and how they said Don Corleone had all the judges and all the politicians in his pocket. It's because politicians don't respond to vote, they respond to money. He was in their pocket. He was paying these men. He was bribing them. That's why he could get away with all the shit that he did. Even J. Edgar Hoover, as as great as an investigator he was, and He was a known racist and he was also a homosexual cross dresser. I firmly believe that he had something to do with Martin Luther. I know he did, that he had something to do with Dr. King's assassination. But I was reading how the reason why the mob, he never really went after the mob, like talking about it, was because allegedly they had blackmailed him by finding some, let's just say, some pictures he wouldn't want out in the public with him and I think his second in command, Tolson, I believe. I'm not quite sure, but I saw this on a documentary a few years ago where they talked about that. See, it's more than just going out and voting, getting somebody that's Democrat in office. It's about what their agenda they're carrying out. And if their agenda is not for the black community, if their agenda is not in favor of supporting the traditional family, or if it's not in favor of supporting reparations, if it's not in favor of supporting our military, strengthening up our military, if it's not in support of the things that can make us great, then I don't want anything to do with them, period. And you can say that I'm being selfish, I'm being smart. That's the way I look at it. Yo, fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice, I sound like George Bush. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You can't be fooled again. That's what Bush said. Fahrenheit 911. I remember that movie. Oh, man. Research their platforms, their history. If you agree, vote for them regardless of party. You have to research and look at a person's platform, but I'm not voting for someone just because they're a Democrat, and I'm not voting for them just because Martin Luther King would have wanted or Martin Luther King fought for this. Martin Luther King fought for black men for have rights and freedoms, and the right to vote was just a part of that. They wanted us to be have the right to choose, the right to have will, to go where we want to go sit down where we want, even if we weren't going to support. Let's just look at the college education, for instance, when James Meredith was shot walking to, I believe, it was University of Mississippi. I think it was Ole Miss. I could be wrong with my history, but I remember the story of him being shot in his back. And I think it was the March of Fear. I can't be Walk of Fear. I can't be 100% sure. But nevertheless, black people being in segregated schools at that time, and still we're still segregated. Of course, I want to support HBCU, so I went to an HBCU, or you may go to HBCU, but I also want to. It's also about the fact that if I wanted to choose to go to LSU or Tulane, like for law school, for instance, I went to Southern University Law Center. So if I wanted to, at the time in the 1950s or 60s, I probably would not be able to get into Loyola or LSU or Tulane because of Jim Crow laws. I should have the right to choose wherever the hell I want to go because I pay taxes and I'm an American. And so that was the reason why Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers fought, because they wanted African Americans to be free. You see, and actually, that's basically what the founding fathers of this nation wanted as well. Of course, most of them were slave owners and racist, and at that time, but we had blacks that did participate in the foundation of this country. So, in closing, what I'm saying to you all, because I got to get to bed, is that if you're going to vote, go ahead and vote, but don't do it out of fear. And that's another thing we often get. We get well, if you don't vote, Trump is going to get in office. You don't vote, Roy Jones is going to get in office. Remember that in Alabama last year when Roy Jones was facing that Democratic senator? And then when they asked him after he got elected what was his plan for black people, and he didn't have a plan, but he talked about every other group. But African Americans put him in there. Why? Because we were too scared of Roy Jones. It's not a defense of him, but I'm just letting you all know this is the type of stuff that goes on. So don't be intimidated. Stand up and have a backbone. We need it now. It's man up time. Y'all be safe and be blessed. I'm out. Peace, guys. Have a great week.